All righty, everybody. Well, hey, we are going to wrap up day one with a big bang for you. And I am, this is one of the presentations I've been looking forward to all of Note Camp. When I talked with John about a month ago, I think it was when you give me a phone call, we got talking about some things. I was like, oh my gosh, I think you might, well, maybe not have the answer to the Holy Grail, but a very cool tool and presentation talking about what you're going to share with everybody out here tonight. Because like I said, we as note investors, we love the paper side. Doesn't mean we don't like the real estate side, but we've always found that if you start diving into and chasing things, you don't become as efficient as if you've stayed in your one lane. And John, you're an expert at the fix and flip side of things, and you've really systemized some great things to help investors out there, right?
Yeah, that's right. We have been doing flips for almost 8-9 years now. Been through your course, super enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. My business is focused on the fixing and flipping. And what I always looked at was your business was, well, your home runs are my bread and butter. Like, that's what I do. But a lot of times with the note buyers, they struggle with this idea of, okay, well, I want a paper asset. I just want to deal with this. How do I actually handle it when I get the physical asset and now I'm working on what do I do? So that's kind of what the point of my presentation is tonight, is we're going to talk about how to fix your flips so that you can turn them into highly profitable, those home runs for your real estate portfolio. And, you know, we've got an introduction of how to get into it so you can do it yourself. And you know what, if it doesn't work for you to do it because you want to stay in your lane, I can help you with that too. So,
well, I'm gonna turn. You got a PowerPoint presentation. I think you're gonna pull it up there, test it, and then what I'll do is I'll jump off here and then I'll moderate the questions as they come up, and we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Perfect.
Perfect. There we go. Perfect. There we go. Get rock and rolling.
I know it's almost like I've done a little bit of this Zoom meetings before. So welcome you guys to Fix Your Flips. This is transforming your paper asset into cash on time and on budget every single time. So Scott gave me a little bit of an introduction, and I really appreciate that. But I want to go ahead and get into this and tell you a little bit more about who I am. Now, my name's John Swiercinsky. Swiercinsky is a little bit of a challenge. It's not that hard if you just think you want to do some other fun things in life. You want to swear a little, you want to sin a little, and you want to ski a little. That's my name. And this is my beautiful family, my daughter Jana in my arms. That would be Dale next to me, not a member of the family, but a family friend. My son LJ and my amazingly beautiful and pregnant wife Janelle. We're expecting our third child here in about a month, so we're excited about that. But we're also super excited about this program that we've just created. So I'm the founder of iCandy Homes. I started my real estate education back in 2008. We started rehabbing houses in 2010, and we created iCandy Homes in 2012. We were elected into the Rich Dad International Hall of Fame in 2014. We were members of the Fortune Builders Inner Circle Spotlight, September of 2015. We've done over 134 projects that we purchased for nearly $22 million, and we have sold or are currently selling $54 million in deals. I'm telling you all this not because I'm trying to toot my own horn, but just to give you the idea, we've done a few flips. We've seen what happens. We've seen the good, we've seen the bad, and we looked at all of our deals. A lot of what we spent time in the coronavirus was how can we improve? Stuck at home? That's great. That just gives you more time to focus and grow your business. So let's get into it. I've got some agreements here. The first one is I want you guys to be present, because if you're present, then you're actually going to take in more information. You're going to be able to tune out those phone calls, tune out the kids. Maybe you have your 12-year-old son watching your 3-year-old daughter, and they may yell or scream occasionally in the background. That's okay, but they're still taking care of each other as opposed to it being my responsibility while I'm presenting. That's kind of the deal. We make it so that it works, so that we all can gain some stuff out of this. The next thing here I want to tell you is nothing I say is true unless it's true for you. This is something my business coach taught me. When you're having a bad day, have you ever noticed that things just start to go sideways? They don't go right. It just continues to snowball and get worse and worse and worse. Has that happened to anybody before? And I'm kind of a big fan of the chat. So if you have the ability to, if you have questions you want to ask, or you want to share comments, I would love for you to go ahead and share that with us. Because there are some things that I want to make sure that we get interaction going on here. So this idea of a bad day happening and just getting worse and worse, has that happened to anyone else before? Okay, so of course it's happened to almost everybody. When you come in and you're dealing, there we go. All right. When you're dealing with those things, part of the issue is it's very easy to get trapped into feeling down, into feeling bad. And when you get to feeling bad, inevitably you make it that way and it gets worse. Now the opposite is true as well. If you come in and you actually are having a great day, things are going the way you want, magically things just go right. I'm sure you've seen it. Maybe it hasn't been in business. Maybe it's been in your personal life, or maybe it was that one special dance back in high school, whatever the case may be. You have this ability to make things go right or wrong. If I come into you and I tell you, okay, out of 100 offers that you put in on the MLS, you're going to get one of them as an actual flip deal. Now, I know you guys aren't generally looking for that, but just the general idea of putting in 100 offers to get one deal. That may sound like a lot. And some people would say, you know what? That's too much for me. I'm not going to do it. I don't care what you say, John. I can't find a deal if I put in 100 offers. Well, you're going to be right. If you don't put in 100 offers, you will not get one deal. You might get lucky and put in 10 and get one, but then it's just luck. It's not a repeatable system. What I'm looking for is, if you've got the attitude of, yeah, I'm going to put in 100 offers so I can get a deal, then you're going to do whatever it takes to succeed. That's why I say here, that is your power. Your power is to make it go right or not. If you say, well, John, I really wanted to just have a paper asset. I didn't want to have something, a physical house that I had to deal with. Those are headaches I just don't want. It's a pain in my tail. Well, then you're going to have a pain in the butt. That's what you'll make it. If your attitude is, oh, it's no problem, I can deal with this, it will not be a problem for you. You'll get done. Now, my next part here is a participation. I talked a little bit about it. I see several people have found the chat over there in Zoom. That's fantastic. But I have a drill for you, because what I'm going to ask you to do is to breathe in, literally just suck air in when I say go, and you're going to count how long you can breathe in. On your marks, get set, go. Okay, that was 5 seconds for me. So go ahead and put however long it was for you in the chat. Now, the wonderful thing about this, we see 5, 6, 7. I've seen people with 10, 20, 30 seconds. Really well done. That's amazing that you're still breathing in. The point of this, though, is no matter who you are, at a certain point in time, if you don't stop breathing in, you will pass out and eventually die. So let's not do that. What we're doing here is, this participation is your way of breathing out while I'm breathing in to you, giving you information. When you comment back to me, that gets you to be more alive and engaged. And that's what I want. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes, it does.
Wonderful. Okay, great. So if you don't understand something, please, please, please ask. That's the fundamental here. That communication between us will help you, will help me, and will be wonderful. But there's one single most important thing, and I know Scott's on board with this. You have to have fun when you're doing this. If you're not having fun, that whole power you have of whether you're going to make it right or wrong, if you're not having fun, you're going to make it go wrong. Have fun in whatever you're doing, so that you actually can succeed. All right, great. So what's this about? Well, we've got note opportunities. You guys have all seen Scott talk before. There've been some amazing panelists, but you're dealing with notes primarily. This is outside my normal realm of expertise, but I've got an idea. I've been through some of the classes with Scott, and I know that you're working on negotiating with homeowners so that you can get them from a non-performing note back into a performing note. That's your number one priority. Or getting something that's already been converted back into a performing note from non-performing. But sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes you have to go through the foreclosure process, or there's an in-between stage of they can't afford to stay in the home. They don't want you to foreclose on it. Maybe they give you, you don't foreclose on it, but they'll give you clean title, or they'll hand you the keys so that you can just wipe away the foreclosure. That can work too, but your worst case scenario still is this foreclosure process where now you have a physical asset, something that you've got to deal with. And that leads into problems. Well, do you sell the house as is versus rehab? And which is the best way of doing it? And there's other issues that we'll bring up as well so that you can kind of see, but we've got to be able to work through these so that you can accurately know in every situation which is the right path for me to take. Opportunity is looking for you. This camp is full of opportunities. You're getting amazing information. And so you've got to see, how do I actually implement it? How do I make this something that's usable for me? So let's go ahead and dig into actual note opportunities now. With Scott's program, he walks you through the whole process. Make sure that you understand what needs to happen so that you can be successful. He's going to introduce you to the people that you need to start buying notes, and he'll connect you to the companies that you'll need to service those notes. He's illuminating the path of success for you. This is something that you guys have seen. That's why you're here. When you actually get into dealing with notes themselves, now you're coming into looking at the opportunity to negotiate with the homeowner. It puts you in control of the property. This is what we really want. We want to have that control, because then once we have control, we can actually turn it into a win-win situation for the current homeowner and us as the people who are the lenders on the property, since we own the note. As I said before, foreclosure is the worst case scenario. It's something that it doesn't happen a huge amount of the time. You know, the time that you actually take back a property is what, 5, maybe 10% of the time. It's not a huge number. But when it is, you need to know how you're going to move through it so that you can actually make the most out of that situation and hit the home run in that time. All right, so now let's talk a little bit more about foreclosures. Because the reason we can go straight into foreclosures so quickly is because you have the tools already to deal with the other issues. This is the issue that, as Scott said, it's the stumbling block for a lot of note buyers and sellers. They don't know what to do when they actually get the house back, because this situation gives you problems. Now, the problems break down into, are you going to sell it as is versus rehabbed, and which is best? Because you've got to be able to figure it out. Now, we're going to get into all of these things because it's on the face of it, if it's something you don't do on a day in basis, it looks super complicated. But the actuality of it is, it's not. It really is something that's very simple and very straightforward. You just have to be willing to look at it and get closer to it so that you can actually do these actions yourself. So first off, if you're selling the property after foreclosure, you have the ability to sell it as is. Now, because you guys have a real estate background, I assume you have a general idea of it. It's a house, it's for sale as is. But what it means is that you're literally going to do nothing to the property before selling it. And that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. But who do you sell it to? Well, if the house is in good condition, then you can sell it to an end user, a homeowner. That can work in some situations. But if you're in a property that has taken 2 or 3 years to go through a foreclosure process, that house probably isn't going to be in the best condition. So at that point, then you're talking about selling it to an investor. And where do you find those investors? And how do you determine the price that you're going to sell it for? These are some of the straightforward questions that a lot of you can think of to begin with, but then you've got to see, okay, well, how do I work through it?
Patrice has a question.
Okay. When you went into business, did you have investors? When I first started my first deal, I funded myself within the first, let's see, 8 deals, I had other investors that I was working with. Now, one of the crazy things that you may or may not realize is the people that you're in classes with, build relationships with them, because they could turn out to be partners with you. That's one of the things in the different education programs I was a part of. I wasn't going around, hey, do you have money? Hey, do you have money? Hey, do you have a deal? Hey, like, I wasn't doing that, but I was talking to people and getting to know them and building relationships. And based off of those relationships, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later, suddenly I had people that were talking to me, hey, John, I've got 200,000 that I don't know where I can place this. I don't want to just put it into the stock market. It's kind of volatile right now. Oh, okay, well, I can get you a 12% APR. Does that sound good to you? And, but the thing is you're talking to them about what it is that they're looking for. If you're willing to have those conversations, life gets a lot easier. One of the things that we're going to talk about in my webinar series that we're doing is there's a lot of places where it's just a matter of, are you willing to communicate with people? That's the bottom line issue. And if you are willing to communicate with them, then it's going to go great. It's going to be amazing. Does that answer your question? So the next step here is going to be selling the property after foreclosure. Well, if you've got a rehab, now you're looking at actually putting in some work. Now you're going to come in and you're going to improve the house. What it means is that you're going to fix the property up before you sell it. Again, this is super simple. It's not complicated. Part of the question though is, well, how much do you fix it up? And then who do you sell it to? Like, is it possible that you could sell it to an investor still? Yeah, it's possible if you do what is essentially you just clean the house out so that the investor that buys it can see what he's bidding on when he's going to buy it from you. That's one option. The more information you give to them, the more you're making it interesting for them to buy it from you. If you come in and you just say, it's a house, I've never been there, I don't ever want to go there, chances are you're going to get a lower price when you sell it. Now, is that still a possible option for you? Of course. But if you're willing to do some things, you can improve your return. Now, the other option, of course, is going to be to an end user, a homeowner. But then there's the question of, well, how do you determine the price? And again, this is something that is very straightforward. Realtors work great, guys. They actually have a pretty good idea what the heck they're doing. You find a good one and you get them to work with you. Now, what my point of view is, it's great to have a power team that can help you do the things that you need to do. But if you don't understand what it is that you're doing, at least at a conceptual level, you're going to have trouble. So part of the reason that I created this class is because of the fact that I want to make sure that everyone that gets to where they're going down this path has the basic information so that they can accurately do it and have a pretty good idea, is somebody pulling the wool over my eyes? Yes or no? How do I set it up so that I am putting myself into a successful position and not into a position to be hurt? But there's still the question of which is best. Now, again, this is a really simple answer. Which gives you the highest ROI? ROI is your ruler here. ROI, return on investment. It's just how much money did I get out of the project versus how much money did I put into it. And you come out and you calculate it based on an annual number. Now, we go into this a whole lot more than that, but you need to analyze several different scenarios. The first is, how do I do if I sell it as is? What if I sell it with a minor rehab? And then lastly, what if I sell it with a rehab to the neighborhood? Now, notice I did not put on here, what if I fixed it up so it's the best house on the block? That's not what your target should be. If you fix it up to above the neighborhood status, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for longer hold times. You're asking for a lower offer when you actually do get it on the market, because you're setting the top end instead of actually being in the middle of the market. Now, it's okay to be on the higher side of the market, you know, to find the middle and be a 10% above or 5% above, or, you know, maybe if the market is saying it's going to be a $200,000 home as the median, and you're looking at it going, okay, well, I'm at 210 because I see there's still some that are at 225. So I'm not the highest. I don't want to be the highest, but I want to be competitive so that ideally we start a bidding war. That's the target. But which choice, which direction do we want to go with this? The answer is you base it off the numbers. You do whichever one gives you the highest return on investment. If that means that I do nothing and I sell it as is, then that's what you do. Again, if you've got no further cash to put into it and you can actually make a good profit on it, that's great. That's not a problem at all. But you've got to be able to analyze your deal. And it's a real simple process to do, but you've got to go through and have the training to be able to do it. Now, as we get into other problems that happen with this, we get stuck on this money versus ROI issue. A lot of times, rehabbers and note buyers, when they come in and they see this, all right, I took down the house, I own this physical property, I see a big dollar sign on the back end of this. That's great. It's wonderful to see a big dollar sign at the end of this rainbow. But if you're only focusing on the dollar sign, you're not paying attention to ROI, you're going to hit some problems. Big money on the back end is a trap. We talked about ROI being return on investment, or R over I, literally. And what ROI takes into account above the normal is time. The difference between just the dollar signs on the back end of a deal and ROI is, you know, on every single project can be compared to each other on which does better. When I said you look at the as-is value, a minor rehab, a full rehab, you're looking at the ROI on each of those to see which one is better. It's not a hard choice. You just look at the numbers. It's very simple, very straightforward. Now, it is super tricky to fall for the bigger numbers on the back end, because you look at it and you say, hey, there's more money to go in my pocket. I love money going in my pocket. And trust me, everybody wants more money going in your pocket. But I'm going to show you a deal that looks amazing and then show you what actually happened. So this is 669 Dundee Road in Glencoe, Illinois. It's a northern suburb of Chicago. This was a house that we actually flipped. Now, if you look at this, you can probably get the idea. This is a pretty nice house. This picture was taken after we fixed it up in the winter, of course. And it was a beautiful home when we got done with it. Now, when we looked at purchasing it, we estimated that we would buy it for $300,000. We estimated the rehab to be $650,000. Now, for you guys that don't do flips, that's a goal, because, you know, that could be what, 8, 9, 10 different notes that you bought, perhaps even a lot more than that. It was a big chunk of cash. We saw the holding and closing costs going to be $170,000, and we looked at a sale price of about $1.7 million. So we estimated a profit of this of $580,000. We also estimated what the money was going to cost us to borrow it to do this project at just over 122. And so that left us with a real projected profit of $457,788. How many of you think that would be a good deal? Yeah, cha-ching. It sounds great. It's wonderful. But here's the issue. You notice that this picture was taken during the winter. It was on the market for an extended period of time. We had a Christmas party there. We didn't get any offers. It sat on the market until March, and we finally got an offer. And I'll show you what the offer was at in just a moment. The actual numbers on this came out. We did purchase it for $300,000. This is the interior, just past where the wreath is on the door. That's basically the picture's taken from the other side. So we did purchase it for $300. Our rehab number actually came out to be $700. Now, $50,000 is a chunk of change. That's a lot. But on a rehab that's $650,000 projection, to only be $50,000 off means we were less than 10% off. That was really close, and we're not disappointed in it. And in fact, we positively went over budget because we looked at it in the den we turned into a library. Now, why would that cause you to spend an extra $50? Because that library was a custom built library that was about $60,000. Now, why the heck would you put a $60,000 library in there? Because that's what was needed in the area. Like, you've got to go with what's going to make it sell. Okay, great. So our carrying closing costs came out to similar numbers. The problem was, after it sat on the market for almost 6 months, we had got no offers, and our first offer came in at $1.5 million. Now, on one hand, if you've never sold a house for over $1 million, getting a $1.5 million offer is that cha-ching. It sounds really good. You think, okay, this is great. This is wonderful. Our profit, though, because of the 50 over and because of the price reduction, we're about 230, 250 lower than we were hoping to be at. And then we had the money costs. Because this project didn't take us 6 months, it took us about 18 months to actually complete it. So we almost tripled our money costs. We were left, when this deal was done, with an actual profit of $50,000. That's not the cha-ching that we want it to be. Because if I told you, if I said, Scott, if I could loan you $1 million for 18 months, how much can you generate with it?
I would say better than 5%.
Yeah, exactly. Wah, wah, wah. It's like but the house looks so beautiful. It's wonderful. It's a nice feather in your cap to say we had a $1.5 million sale. It's beautiful and nice. But if I had it to do over again, I'd never do this deal. See, when we started on this deal, we looked at the dollar signs. All we could see was this $460,000 profit on the back end. It just screamed, this is going to be wonderful. And instead, it was, So that's the trick of the big dollar signs on the back end. If you don't actually take return on investment into account, you can fall victim to these ploys, to these problems. I love this. It's almost like I have several windows open on my computer and I'm getting a little bit of lag here.
You know, it's the thing is that return on investment can look good, but like you said, return on time is one of the most important things that you have to take a look at. And I'm willing to bet you were damn happy to have that thing move and come out in the black, at least a little bit, versus, you know, how many more months would have run if you didn't accept that offer, and would you have been up in the red at that point? You know what I mean?
Oh, of course. Like, that was the argument that we had when the offer of 1.5 million came in. And of course we negotiated, but that was the top end. And we're sitting there going, you know, my realtor's like, this is worth 1.7. There's not a question. There's comps in the market that guarantee you that, or that show that that's the case. But even if we would have waited, and like this went under contract and closed in March, if we would have waited until April, May, June, could we have found another person that would have offered us more? Maybe. But if the interest is racking up at, you know, tens of thousands of dollars per month, you've got to have a much, much, much higher offer come in, and you're just risking it. We're money managers. Like, all of you guys that are working in notes, me that's working as flips, we're investors. We're managing money, whether it's our own or someone else's. We have to make sure that the money that we're spending is going to come back to us with friends. That's the whole thing. And if we're If we're sending out $1.1 million and it comes back with 50,000 friends, that's disappointing when I would expect it to come back with several 100,000 friends, not just a few tens of thousands of friends.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things that we focus on in the seminar that I'm hosting, is to go ahead and actually see, how do you really handle calculating what the profit is, and which way should you move? Now, a lot of people are worried about permits when they have to fix up a home, because, you know, again, this isn't your bread and butter. This is something that you're sitting there going, I've got to deal with the village. What does this look like? Well, it looks like a building permit. How do they work? Each town, city, village, county has different requirements. How can you possibly know which ones apply and where? I'll give you a secret. You're going to ask. You're going to call into the village or to the town, and you're going to talk to their building department and find out, what do I need to do? When do I need permits? What are your codes that I need to follow on it? And some people like, John, I don't want to look stupid. Tell me, do you look stupider? Do you look more stupid or less stupid if you get a little red tag tagged onto your front door saying that you can't do any further work? Ask the questions. Get it resolved so that you don't have future problems. Well, who should have the permits? Contractors will tell you, you don't need a permit to do this job. Should you believe them? The short answer is no. How do you determine if each instance you need a permit? You ask. Like, again, this isn't rocket science. It's being willing to go in and ask the questions to find out the correct answers. Well, when do you get the permits? Now, for the note, folks, this is a pretty easy thing. You get the permits when you know you're actually going to go ahead and do the rehab. For people that are buying rehabs, most people will say, well, you get the permit after you buy the house for a flip. What I'd say on our side, that's something that you can talk to the homeowner about if you're buying it from a homeowner. Again, with you guys, it's a little different. But the issue is it takes however long the village takes. You can't control them. And how can you control when the inspector is going to check on your property? Well, you've got to get in and talk to them and get to know them. How can you know that you're going to pass each inspection and not fall behind your targets? Because you need to know the codes. And not only do you need to know the codes by asking, but you need to talk to the village and say, okay, if you say that it needs to be this diameter of wire for the electrical, how can I check that? Like, how do I test it? That's a simple question to ask, but it's something that most people are not willing to do. So forget that. Well, how do we pick contractors? These guys are nice. They've got hard hats. They got to be good, right? Maybe. You find good contractors by talking to people. You know he's good. Yeah, you can check his references. You can come through and check and see, are they going into Home Depot at 6 in the morning because they're hitting it right when it first opens? Great. Yeah. Wesley's asking, should we put our contractors on draws? And yes, we're going to go into that a little bit here. But is he licensed? You need your contractors to be licensed. Does he need to be? Well, if it's required, 100%. And should he have insurance? Yes, because you don't want to be the one that gets sued with him having no protection. Now, my attorney gave me a story about how an owner hired a contractor. The contractor brought in his son to do work for him. Literally, he had all the stuff he was supposed to when he started, but his insurance expired while he was working on the project. And it just so happened that the son came to work one day after the insurance expired, fell in the home, split his head. He didn't die. It wasn't that bad. But the guy, the father, was the GC, and he didn't have insurance. So guess what? The son sued the owner of the home. And the owner of the home is now responsible for this because the father was supposed to have insurance. That's not a happy story. So this is something that you need to know, the things that you got to check to make sure that your people do what's supposed to happen. Now, should you use your contracts or should you use their contracts? This is one of those things where if you use their contract, it's going to favor them. You need to have your own contract that will protect you. This ties more into what Wesley was saying is, well, should I pay him 50% down? Or should I pay him 30% down? Or should I pay him 10% down? My answer, hell no. You're not going to pay him anything down. Because if you pay him something down, he's immediately ahead of you. Now, what does it mean for him to be ahead of you? Well, what it means is if your contractor is ahead of you, you've paid him more than he's done work on your property. That's a bad thing. If your contractor can't afford to do work and you pay him for the completed work, you need to find a different contractor. Again, this is, honestly, it's pretty common sense if you think about it. You want to make sure that you're paying somebody for the work that they've actually completed and not paying them for work that they may hopefully do. Because one of the pitfalls that contractors tend to do is they'll go ahead and they'll take a deposit from you, go finish the other house they're working on, get the final payment from them, and then come back and work on your house. Well, in theory, that can work. In actuality, what that means is you get delays. We don't want delays. That's not how you have projects that are done on time and on budget every single time. One of the biggest fears that people have is replacing a contractor. The idea is, well, I know less than this contractor about the rehab. And especially for people that they're not used to dealing with the physical project. It's okay. You don't have to know more than him about it. You just need to build in time to fix unforeseen issues. And if they can't catch up, you fire them. It's cut and dried. We talked about contractor having poor use of their money. That leads to delays. It leads to problems. And the issue is, if it doesn't feel right, you have to act now. Because, well, you may think, oh, he's just a day behind. Look, in all of our contracts that we're working with people, we expect them to work Monday through Friday. That gives them, if they fall behind on Wednesday, they have Thursday, Friday to catch up, but they also have Saturday and Sunday. But if you come into Monday morning and they haven't finished what was supposed to be done on Friday, they're fired. It's harsh, but it's effective. And in your contract, you've got to have protection so that if you do have to fire the contractor, while you're finding that new contractor and you are incurring money costs, you're still able to get that from out of the money that was originally supposed to go to the first contractor. Now, there's a lot of things in our contract that favor us. One of the things that we do, though, to make sure that the contractor knows that we are wanting to be successful with them is we put 100% of the funds for the rehab into escrow. That means all they have to do to get paid is to do the job on time, on budget, and correctly. That's a simple thing to do. If they're a professional contractor, they should be able to do it because they help us create the timeline when things are going to be done. They're telling us. We're building it with them. We set up benchmarks. That's when they get paid. When they get this done, here, okay, so they got through the demo. Great. How do we check to see that demo is done? That's part of our benchmark, is so that we can see, yes, demo is done. All the drywall is removed in the house. Okay, great. All the cabinets are removed if we're removing the cabinets. Whatever is part of the demo, it's written in there, and then it's how do you check? Then the next thing, the rough plumbing is in. Okay, great. Now we know this is how it's supposed to be. It passes the test. It's inspected and it passes. And we also know that we look at the plans and see, is the sink in the right place? Was it supposed to be on the north wall and it's on the west wall? Well, then that doesn't pass. Even if we're not going to pay out on that. Even if they pass the village inspection, it doesn't pass ours. You've got to protect yourself. Now, unforeseen issues are great because especially as you guys are buying houses or you end up with a house that you probably have never been in before. So one of the things that a lot of rehabbers say is, well, how was I supposed to know that the 100-year-old house had bad stuff behind the walls? Well, it was a 100-year-old house. They hadn't.
Yeah, 100-year-old house is going to have issues behind the wall.
Yeah, like, duh. Again, these are obvious things that if you just think about it, well, this house was built in the 40s and they've never updated it. So your wiring is going to not be to code. Your plumbing's not going to be to code. Like, you can go down and check all of these things off. But the problem is most rehabbers don't think you can actually predict all the things you need to do to a house before you buy it or before you get ready to actually rehab it. You've got to know. We literally have a checklist of every single thing you're going through to make sure that you know what needs to be done to the house, and so you can budget for it correctly. Because if you remember, I said, maybe you want to sell it as is. If you come in and you see that this house, that let's say, for example, it's a $100,000 house in its current condition, and you look at it after walking through it when you've taken it back and you own it now, and you see, or you have a third party go and take video pictures for it, you see, okay, this needs a lot of stuff done to it. It needs to be gutted and basically rebuilt. Great, that's going to cost me another $100,000 to do, or whatever the number is. But if I know I've got 100 into it and I've got another 100 to fix it up, I'd better be able to sell it for north of $275,000, $300,000. If I can't, I don't want to put more time and money into it. I use my calculator to figure out which is the better way to do it. Does this make sense?
Sure does, John.
Good. Okay, so the next thing is, well, can you actually do real estate now? And are villages even open? Because like, there's so much craziness. We're starting to see things open up. I'm in Florida. It's starting to feel like normal, except for people who are wearing masks all the time. And I'm wondering if I walked into Japan or something. It's not normal yet, but it's still, you can do real estate. You can get permits. I fell for the trap of contractors told me, well, villages aren't open, so I can't get permits. That sat for about a week. And then I realized, this is stupid. Why am I believing what they're telling me? I'm calling. And I called every village that we are doing houses in. It took me about an hour and 15 minutes to call the 5 different villages. And you know what? I left messages on 4 of them, talked to 1 person. But by the next day, every one of them had called me back and were happy to let me know how I could make it work. Every single village had a way to go through so that you could continue to move forward. Can you get your home inspected? Of course. Real estate and buying and selling homes is considered an essential service. So you still can get people to go out. Right, like less than a week after things got closed down, my mom put a condo under contract here in Florida, and we had an inspector go out 2 days after we talked to him to inspect. He was perfectly willing for me to meet him there. Now, as it happened, I had a cough, and we're in the middle of Corona, so I'm like, I'm not going to go out and risk getting him sick. But the opportunity was there. You have to talk to people. And look, there may be some people that say, you know what, I'm scared of all of this virus stuff. I'm not going out. That's fine. That's perfectly legit for them to say that. All that means is I look at the next person on my list. And there's a lot of people on my list if I search the internet for home inspectors or if I search for contractors. It's, are you willing to search them out? How did I find this information out? I talked to people. I called the villages. I called the home inspectors. Can contractors continue to work? Some can, some can't. Up in Chicago, I had a contractor that was literally a week from being done with a project. And he says to me, we can't do this. I can't bring my guys to work. If they get caught breaking this not safer at home or safer at home thing, then I'm going to come in and I'm going to have to pay the fine for each one of them. And it's $500 per day, per person. He's like, I can't afford that. I'm like, all right, thank you for letting me know. I'll find someone else that can do it. Because there were a lot of contractors that actually got super busy because they kept working. Can you get money for your deals? Let's say that you've got this property and John, it's going to cost me $50,000 to fix up the home. I don't have $50,000 to do it. All my money's tied into other assets. You know, I've got these other paper notes that, you know, they're not in a place where I can easily liquidate them. Okay, but you own the home at that point free and clear. That's equity. That's value of the property that you can get a loan against that house. Now, have I seen during the last 3 months some lenders that are backing out of deals because they don't want to fund in uncertain times? Absolutely. But I've also seen other lenders that are perfectly happy to continue. And I'm not talking about strictly conservative or conventional, your typical Chase or Bank of America or those types of things. Like, yeah, they're willing to lend. They're going to make you put 20% down and da. That's fine. But there's still private money. There's still hard money. They're still reaching out to your friends and family to see, well, did you pull your money out of the stock market before it crashed and you need to make some of it back? I can get you a better return. What will your property be worth on the back end after fixing it up? I'll tell you right now, especially in the Chicago market, that's where I've been looking most closely. There's less houses on the market because the people who live in the houses, they're not wanting to put their house up. They don't want to have people come in and walk into the house where they don't know if they've been sick or not. So there's not as many houses on the market. And are there probably a few less buyers than there usually would be right now as we hit these high volume months? Yeah, but there's so few houses on the market. Who are the people that don't care? The rehabbers. Those are the houses that are on the market right now. So the value is holding pretty constant in spite of the fact that we've seen the economy 14+% unemployment. Well, okay, we went to a 13.3. That's a better number. So we're improving. We've seen the stock market is recovering. We're seeing some good signs there. So that leads us into these unprecedented times that we have right now. Opportunity is looking for you because I'm sure you've seen these problems that I've described. You get a house, you foreclosed on it, you have it, but how do you know what to do with it? How do you decide the right way to do it? The issue here is that those are opportunities for you to succeed. When you hit places where other people stumble, that's where you start to be able to carve out a niche and become better at that area and to improve and grow. Most of the time, if you're just going to sell a house that truly needs to be fixed up before it hits the market, you're going to lose out on potential profit. Like, that's just the way it sits. So you've got to see, am I willing to lose that potential extra profit? Or do I want to take that chance of going in and fixing it up? Because I can learn the skills so that I can do it right every time. You know, many people heard about the note camp, yet only you guys are still with us. Some people, you know, it's amazing. We've had almost 50 people that have been here at various times throughout the day. That's great. But there's only you guys that are with me right now that are still here at the end of the day. I look at it and I see, wouldn't it be nice if you didn't need to look at the check to see if you can pay for it? To give that special gift to your significant other and remember that moment forever? To have the thrill of getting a property back and knowing you hit the jackpot. It was your grand slam for the year. See, I'm looking for people that want to take action and can follow through to get results. If you'll visit www.notes.fixyourflips.com, you can sign up for an online course that will give you the information you need to create your own rehab business for every property you need to fix. This course will help you buy anything you want, whether it's more properties, whether it's more cars, whether it's more whatever. You'll be able to stop worrying about how much something costs because you produce massive income. You can see through this course how you can get projects done on time and on budget every single time without having to add stress to your life. Thus, you can enjoy the life you always wanted. You can see how rehab plans go according to the plan every single time. There we go. Now, what I want you to do is sign up, and your biggest concern will be your biggest profit, because notes are a great thing. They're a very, on one hand, conservative way of doing it. You're looking for that jackpot of when you get a property back. But if you're going to settle for just selling it as it is, you're going to miss out on what you could potentially do. So what I've got for you today is an 18-hour webinar series with 2 sessions per week. We have started live classes already. What we're going to do is we're going to give you guys the recordings for these 2 classes, because we had one on Tuesday and Thursday, so that you can catch up with the current members. And we're going to continue to have classes on Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Central. Now, these classes are typically 2 hours in length. They may go long. I'm not saying that we're going to hit 18 hours of delivery and I'm going to turn off the spigot, that the water's going to turn off. We're going to go until we get everything covered that we need to get covered. I've got a huge set of things that I want to hit to make sure that you guys can understand how to do every single thing, because I'm offering a money back 100% guarantee on this. Like, there's no risk to you. You come in, all I need from you to qualify for the money back guarantee is to show up and do the work, because there's homework. I expect you guys to actually be able to start implementing what I'm teaching you so that you can grow and improve. Now, I've done these classes before, and they've cost several $1,000s. We've got it, it's listed for sale at $1,000, but because you guys are here at Scott's Note Camp 2020, we want you guys to get in this and get your problems resolved for $250. After the next hour is over, it will go back up to the $1,000 price. It's still an amazing value at $1,000. But I, again, want to encourage people to sign up now and get involved and take the area that has the most uncertainty for you and turn it into something that is just a solid, you know what's going to happen every single time. Now, the extra thing about this program is, let's say that you go through the program and you come through it and you're like, John, this is great information. I understand how to do this all myself. I can do it. I see exactly what you're saying. I don't want to. Well, that's fine too. The back end of the class, if you're interested in a service, we can provide the service for you. I don't want to just offer that service up front on the simple basis of, if you don't know what you should be doing, then you have no way of knowing if I'm doing it right. And it's nice to think that you could just give some money to a person and they'll do everything that they say they're going to do, but you need to be able to follow up and make sure things are happening correctly. So that's why we teach the class first before we go into the service. Does that make sense?
You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly,
Right?
man. That really is the situation. It's a place where this business is not, it's not complicated. It's just being willing to ask the questions at the places that you need to ask them and not buying into the BS answers of, I don't know. Okay. I thought it worked the other way as well. Okay, so my wife just handed me a note saying it needs to be http:// There's no www. My apologies.
Okay. No problem. Easy fixed.
Yep, exactly. The next thing on here is just, what questions do you guys have? Because honestly, there's a lot of information that I want to give you guys. I wanted to just touch on some things so that you can start to see the different opportunities that are there for you to actually get these questions answered. I'm available. You join the class. If you have questions on the homework, you can talk to me afterward. You can shoot me email. Like, we're going to teach you to build a deal analyzer that you can use to see which way that we do it. Because again, I don't want this to be about, can I make you dependent upon me? I want to make this so that you can figure things out for yourself. If it's something that you're like, I understand that, but I still want your help, well, fine, we'll work with you. But I want to put it there so that you guys can get it yourself. Any questions?
Great stuff, John. Really great stuff. And somebody who's done millions and millions of rehabs and in the Rich Dad Hall of Fame and the Fortune Builders Hall, you know your shit. I've been around your projects. I've seen your stuff in Chicago. So know what you guys have done. I mean, I was thinking back. I think we originally met in San Diego at Secret Knock. What, 6-7 years ago, right?
Yep.
Greg. But let's talk about this. You as doing all these deals, you've got your formulas in place. You've been through the headaches. You've been to the circus. You've been around all three. That's the really the value. Like, hey, you don't have to put up with this stuff. Here's exactly what it should be within this range. Here's what the cost should be within this range. Here's a time frame, provided unless it's an act of God or something like that, they should fall into this range, right?
Honestly, even if there's an act of God, I'm gonna hold them to the fire because they should know. Like, honestly, if I'm going to work with the contractors so that they build it to protect themselves and me, because I don't want to put them in a position to fail. That's not cool. That's not the right way to do it. So if I come in and I assume, look, I'm saying you're working 5 days a week. That doesn't mean that you can't work Saturday and Sunday. Not everybody wants to do that, but there are some contractors that do. And that means that if you've got a 5-week project, they're going to get done 4 or 5 days early, 6 days early. So the question is here is the agreement for the general contractor included in the course? We do show you guys the contract that we use. We're willing to give you a copy of it, but you have to have your own local attorney look it over. Like, that's one of those obvious things. My primary contract is based in Illinois. If you're not based in Illinois, it's not the contract you should use. Like, you need to make sure that it's state specific, that it comes in and it's going to work for you. But definitely, we're willing to share our information because that's part of the reason we do the class.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we did last night was about a 3 hour and 15-minute session that we were working on just the deal analyzer. And as I said, anybody that buys the course, they're going to get a copy of the first 2 classes that we did, because of the fact that there's amazing content there. And literally, I had people open up their Excel file and start to build the deal calculator while we're on a Zoom call.
Nice.
How often do I personally inspect out-of-state flips? So there's a couple different answers for this. When I was not being very responsible for things, I didn't. And then when I started being responsible for things, I'd go up to Chicago every week. And now what I've put in place is the ability for me to have a third party inspect everything that's getting done each benchmark, so that I know that it's going to go right, instead of being stuck at, well, this is what I think is right. See, that's part of the thing that I was talking about when it comes to benchmarks. It's not just this is what you're going to do. Like, yeah, there's a doing this that they have to complete. They have to get something done. That's the only way I'm going to pay them, is for a completed thing. Fine. But I also need to know that it is an actual working completed thing. And so that's, how do I inspect that it's correct? And look, you do that by talking to the contractor and working it out with him. I don't have to have all the knowledge that the contractor has. What I do have to have is the ability to talk to him and see, okay, how are you going to know that this is done right?
Allison asked a question: where do you place the escrow account for the contractor?
Generally, we're going to do it based on the attorney that we're working with. Where is it convenient for us? But like, it's an offshoot of Chicago Title is who we use most of the time. So it's not that we're trying to hide anything there. We're just trying to make it so that it's convenient. The reason why we've been using, what's the name of it? It's not Chicago Title.
Chicago Title and Trust.
First American?
It is Chicago. Yeah, I guess it is Chicago Title and Trust fully. But the thing with them is they work with our attorney already. He is part of their, he helps them on some of their title inspections. And so because we work with him and they work with him, then what it does is if we do escrow through them, then he knows that all of the lien waivers, all the contractor sworn statements are correctly done, because it's being checked at each step of the process. It just simplifies it.
Have you ever had contractors come back and slap mechanic liens on the properties?
If you didn't notice, that's the laugh of, yes, we have. And a lot of the things that we do in this system now are because we've seen the mistakes we've made.
Right.
Bluntly. We've come in, and I had another project up in Chicago that was in Evanston. Again, it was over $1 million home, beautiful home. We sold it. We were happy to sell it. But we ended up going through 3 different contractors on it. And the middle contractor, he sued. And we're like, look, the issue is we see the work that you completed, and we've hired a new person to come in and do it. And they're telling us you didn't do the work correctly. So, and we hired an independent third party to come in and inspect and say how much still needed to be done, and And like, we went through the whole process, and it cost us money, and we settled. We settled for less than he liened us for, but it was a pain in the butt. And these are the things that you think, well, I just don't want to fire this contractor immediately. It'll be simpler if I don't. No, it won't. It'll just create more headaches for you long term if you don't handle it immediately. That's why I said, if there's something that comes up that doesn't feel right, act now.
I like when I take a property back to have my attorney slap a lien on the property for more than what the property is worth, or the ARV, so that if we do get a mechanic's lien, we can do a friendly foreclosure, wipe out that junior lien.
Yeah. I mean, that's a brilliant strategy to put on it. I mean, I love it.
But it took me messing up and screwing up on a couple other rehabs to realize, shit, I should have done this sooner.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. Like, you'd think we've done over 130, 140 flips. How can we still be learning stuff? Well, like, that's part of seriously, this whole COVID thing, we spent this time building systems. And not that we had poor systems. Like, we went through Fortune Builders. If you guys know Fortune Builders, they're system intensive. What we've put in place, it's honestly laughable to call what we used to have a system compared to what we do now. It's an order of magnitude more that we have looked at and said, because again, there's so many things that people say, you can't know this, you can't know that. But the answer is you can if you ask the right questions. Like, one of the things that's not as applicable, again, to you guys, but people when you're buying a house and you've got that older home, ask the homeowner to let you actually look behind the wall. Look, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, if I can actually break into this wall and see what's back there, I can accurately estimate how much it's going to cost for me to fix this. If you don't want me to do that, that's fine, but I have to assume that everything that could be wrong is wrong. And like, it's like, again, it's an obvious thing that people do, but when you actually get into putting in offers, people don't do it.
Yeah. Well, that's a big thing is in the inspection, if you can, and trying to figure that out. And obviously we run into that with us buying debt and not being able to see behind the walls. Especially if it's occupied. I mean, if it is vacant, and we own the note, we have the right to go back and check it, and that helps us to identify opportunities to rehab it or not rehab it. To do or not to do, that is the question, as we always say. To rehab or not rehab, that is the question. But that's the thing. Somebody asked me a question or texted me and said, who's this course not for? If somebody's brand new to real estate investing, never done a flip, never done anything, would they still, obviously they get a ton of knowledge out of your course in the 18 hours.
The simplified version of this is we're not assuming a knowledge base.
There you go. Okay.
Like so there's going to be some things that are going to be very intro-ish, that are going to be like, okay, well, like for the first lesson was on, setting to get people up so that they're willing to put in an offer, like on the MLS. Like, for most of us that are doing deals, that's so simple. It's beyond, like, it's step 0. You've got to be willing to put in an offer. Like, you can't do real estate if you can't put in an offer.
Yeah.
But some people don't do that. And they're like, I'm sure you've been through the courses where you sat there and you've seen there's 40 people in the room, and 1, 2, 3, 4 are going to do something with this information, and the rest, the 90% of the other people in there, aren't going to use it at all.
Yeah.
And like, that, to me, that's not to say that the content that's being presented is not good, but it's not something that the student could use.
Yeah.
And
How many?
what we're focused on is making it so that people can use the information they.
How many hours of deal do you think, when you look back now after you've put this 18 or these, you know, these training module together, this class, how many hours of headaches? Because it's you always learn more from the headaches than the actual things. How many hours of headaches do you think you've covered in this aspect of it? And I know it's probably on the higher end, John.
I mean, at this point, it almost feels like lifetimes. I mean, seriously, we went through, because when you're doing rehabs, even when projects go right, there's still something that you can improve on.
Yeah, exactly.
You always can. You look at it and say, oh, well, if I would have just negotiated this little bit harder with the roofer, or, oh, if I would have just done this, or if I just would have done that. Scott, we went through every single deal to see where were the issues. Like, that's how you come in and you build out a list that says, I'm going to look through, I'm going to walk into the leftmost room in the house. I'm going to look at the left wall first. I'm going to look at 75 things.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go to the next wall. I'm going to look at 75 things. And I'm going to go to the next wall. I'm going to look at 75 things. And I'm going to look at the fourth wall and look at those same 75 things. And then I'm going to look at the floor. And then I'm going to look at the ceiling. And then I'm finally going to go to the next room.
Yep.
Because if you don't have a system that you can do repeatedly, again, then you're going to miss something. That's how mistakes happen, is that it's not something that's truly repeatable.
That's totally the truth. That's totally the truth. That's why we got different checklists out there. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, man. Years put into this, everybody. All his mistakes. John and I talked about a month ago. As you were calling me up about this, I was like, oh, this is great. We were talking about, I was like, oh my gosh, we got to get you on, we got to get you on, because I know it's a valuable thing. Because I know, so that's the biggest thing, one of the biggest questions we get, and I see from people that are taking down notes, so they'll buy 10, 5 will get reperforming, which is great. 3, they'll get deed and lose on, a couple they got to foreclose on, but it's always those REO side. What the hell do I do with this? How much do I need to fix this?
Yep.
Is it worth me doing it, or do I just need to dump it to a handyman, make 5-10%, and move on to something else? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. There's got to be a way for you to have a quick answer to that.
Yeah.
Like that, we spent 3 hours going over the simplified deal analysis. We're going to go, like, on Tuesday, we're going to get back into it, and we're bringing in, okay, how does the cost of the money, how does that factor into your decision? How, like, all of these things we're building into it. It's not, like, in my world, it's not a complicated thing to build. Like, I build it in less than 30 seconds.
Right.
But for somebody that's never done this before, that's not used to rehabs and running the numbers, they've got to be able to understand what each thing is doing. Like we do. I'm on Eastern time. 8 o'clock is not that late for me. So when we're wrapping it up last night at 11:15 at night, I'm rolling, I'm fine. But I've got some people that were in Chicago that it was past 10 o'clock and you could tell they were done. Like they were just like, okay, can we do this? Can we go back more? Can we keep it to where it's 2.5 hours, not 3 hours? I'm like, yeah, we can. And what it means is we'll do a couple extra webinars. It's not a problem for me. I want to get the result. I want to get that these people have information that they can use now.
Yeah, I love it, John. Guys, that's it. Go to notes.fixyourflips.com. Get scheduled. Trust me, $250, well worth the investment. He's giving you it at a 75% discount on what he normally charges for you guys because he's on here today. And definitely take him up on this. And your stuff works across the country. You've got the systems are what's the most important. The numbers don't lie, and that's you go with there, and you don't leave it up to chance. You never plan on the best, and you sure as that hopefully the worst doesn't happen. Somewhere in the middle, and always, right, John?
Yep. Absolutely,
awesome.
Scott.
Well, good
Thank
stuff,
you so
man.
much for having me on tonight.
Say what?
Thank you so much for having me on tonight. I appreciate you letting me show this to your students, and it's a fun opportunity for me to do. I really enjoyed your class. I love working and catching up with you again. So thank you much, dude.
Yeah, no problem. And make sure, hi, Janelle. I see you, Janelle, behind you there over there. Good stuff there. Good stuff there. Well, hey, guys, John, you guys have a safe, happy weekend. Thanks and we'll talk some more on Monday or Tuesday. All right, bud?
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night and enjoy the rest of Note Camp.
There you go. Perfect. Thanks, brother.